Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, today we're back at it, another podcast for you guys today, and this one's coming out of Germany. So plenty of good stuff on today's podcast, but let's get into a little bit of news real quick. But before we get into that, don't forget to support our sponsors. Ross Wolf, high-quality aftermarket parts built for enthusiasts by enthusiasts. Go check out their website today for a lot of cool stuff for your vehicle. Everything from cloth-braided performance plug wires all the way to their new Viton seals. Yeah, that's right. You guys tired of those oil leaks? Tired of those paper gaskets? Check them out today. They've got the Viton push rod seals and Viton sump plate setup. So make sure you guys get laced up today. Go to Ross Wolf's website and don't forget to use your coupon code LTD10 for a 10% discount on Ross Wolf's website. So we'll put that description down in the bio below, but there's plenty of cool stuff, a lot of high quality aftermarket stuff for your Volkswagen, jewelry for your engine, and performance parts nonetheless. So go check them out today at rosswolf.com. Also, go subscribe today to VW Trends Magazine, a magazine for the people, by the people. Go check it out today. Not the same old stuff, lots of tech articles, lots of show coverage, things you're going to see in this magazine you won't see anywhere else. So go check them out today at vwtrendsmagazine.com. And also, Icon pistons. You guys want top quality, high performance pistons. There's only one piston to go with, and that's Icon pistons. Currently, they're made in 85.5, 92s, and 94s, 3 different pin heights. Go check them out. Where are you going to buy Icon pistons at? Well, I'm going to tell you that in just a minute, but first, let me pump up the pistons a little bit. These are made from 4032 alloy, which allows you to run tighter piston-to-wall clearances so you can get down, keep that compression, and make that motor put out maximum power. They've got 2 1.5 millimeter top rings and then a 4 millimeter bottom ring, which makes getting new rings for these things a lot easier. And also each piston gets M42 skirt coating to protect against dry startups, as well as give an extra layer of protection. The skirt profile is optimized for stability and performance in boxer engines. And how would these guys know? Because these guys make millions of pistons every year. And now the Big Boy Piston Company put out a line because there's a VW dude that snuck in through the back door and said, hey, boss, let's make some Volkswagen pistons. So the highest performance pistons that you can get right now, Icon pistons. Go get them checked out today. Where can you buy these Icon pistons? Type E Motorsports, CB Performance, RevMaster, the Dub Shop, and Churco Performance. So go check it out today. You want the best pistons? Make sure you only get Icon pistons. Well, if you guys heard what was going on this last weekend, there was at Featherly Park, there was a celebration of life that was going to be going for Bob Lacoste, and also the recent passing of Stanley Ford. There was a lot of stuff going on out there in memory of those guys, and so it was the big spring picnic they do every year. And apparently there was a shooting there on Sunday, and so the situation was there was a confrontation between a couple guys, and one guy leaves, gets upset, comes back, and pulls his truck in, pins 2 guys against the truck, and then gets out and starts shooting at people. Fired off like 10 rounds, hit 2 people. And just to give you guys kind of an update, Jamie Bin was one of the guys that was there. And so they started a GoFundMe for it, and I'll just read the description on this GoFundMe. It says, on Sunday, May 4th, our beloved brother, longtime VW enthusiast Jamie Bin was the victim of a horrific attack and attempted murder at the VW Spring Picnic at Featherly Park in Yorba Linda. While enjoying the day with fellow car lovers, Jamie was targeted and hit by a speeding truck and then shot 2 times, along with his friend Leon Zoltzman, who was with Jamie talking at the moment of the attack and the attempted murder. The attacker hit both men with his truck, causing severe injuries, then got out of his truck and began shooting at both men, striking each of them multiple times. The attacker also shot several rounds at other bystanders too, unfortunately missed before taking the weapon upon himself. Jamie had known the attacker for over 30 years, and 2 years prior to this attack, Jamie had severed all communication with the perpetrator because of mental health issues. Jamie suffered full body extensive trauma and injuries, 4 broken ribs, 2 gunshot wounds to his right leg, and suffered from a heart attack as a result of the attack. Thanks to the quick thinking of a friend who applied a makeshift tourniquet, Jamie survived long enough to reach emergency care. Upon hospital arrival, his heart briefly stopped, and he required emergency blood transfusion before undergoing life-saving surgery. We just learned Jamie needs heart surgery immediately. We're incredibly grateful for this, that Jamie's still with us. However, his injuries are severe. He currently has no feeling in his right foot, faces additional surgeries and long hospital stay, and a long, uncertain path to recovery. The act of violence has shaken our family to the core, and we will do our best to help Jamie and Debbie through this tragedy, but we cannot do it alone. Jamie is more than a VW fanatic. He's a generous soul, who's always the first to lend a hand. He's a devoted husband to his wife, Debbie, and the main provider for their family, including their beloved Pomeranians. Tragic events turn their lives upside down, creating an overwhelming emotional and financial strain. We humbly ask for your help. Their goal is $75,000 to cover hospital bills and stuff like this. And there'll be a link for the GoFundMe in the page. So that's just to get you guys up to speed as to what happened. Crazy event. It's an unfortunate circumstance that there's a lot of people struggling with mental health issues. And, it's just unfortunately something that happens a little too often today. But, it's a damper of a situation, but the car show will happen again next year. They've put out already. And you guys want to support Jamie and his family, I'll put a link in for the GoFundMe down in the description below. But yeah, crazy. And I'll put a link to a couple news stories as well, so you guys can check it out. So it's your boy, Let's Talk Dubs, keeping you guys up to date with some stuff. We may do some further in-depth story on that in the future. But for now, we're going to get moving along with other things we have happening today. So today we've got the podcast that's coming out of Germany today. And if you guys had the April 2025 issue of Hot VWs, you'll see there was an article by my friend George Otto, also a guy who's been on the podcast before, and he interviews a gentleman by the name of Gerald Klaus. Now, Gerald Klaus is the son of Rolf Klaus, who is a VW proprietor there in Germany, built lots of Type 4 engines, developed a lot of Type 4 parts, and his son works in a foundry, a casting foundry. He's a VW guy, longtime VW enthusiast since he's born. Great story that you'll hear about. And he's got degrees in metallurgy and things like that, works at a foundry, and decided to cast his own Type 4 heads. You may have seen that article. If you haven't, go back to that issue and check it out. They're pretty cool. And he's decided to develop and cast some of his own cylinder heads. So we kind of get deep in the weeds talking about a little bit of metallurgy, how heads perform, and a lot of the details about that and why and what makes his heads different, as well as his story. We talk about German differences with the German culture, with building performance motors, as well as what's going on here in the States, different requirements, different needs. And it's pretty interesting to splice this down like that. So it's a great podcast, good history, and I'm sure we'll have him back once he gets some R&D on these cylinder heads and we find out how they perform. So looking forward to it. I know that you guys are I know you guys enjoy these technical podcasts where we kind of get down in the weeds on some stuff like this. And you guys know me, I'm a big Type 4 guy. I love the Type 4s. And if we had some pretty awesome cylinder heads, that would be cool. But maybe he's only going to make 2 sets. So anyway, good podcast. More information on One Crazy Weekend on the back end of the podcast. So let's get into it today, guys. Gerald Klaus, the man who made his own cylinder heads, on Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like.
Okay, everybody. So on today's show, you may have seen in your April 2025 issue of Hot VWs, George Otto had an article, and the article spoke about cylinder heads and some stuff that people are working on behind the scenes on a personal level. And that individual, Gerald Klaus is the guy that's kind of the mastermind behind developing this new cylinder head, but he's got a long storied VW history. And I'm really excited to bring that to you guys today. So joining us today on the podcast is Gerald Klaus out of Saarbrücken, Germany. Gerald, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Hey, well, I'm really excited to have you on here because, I'm a lover of all things Type 4. And and when I saw the article about, you working on the cylinder heads and all that kind of stuff, it leads me to a lot of questions. And some of them were answered in the article. But, the way that we always start the podcast is, and your father's got a long history in Volkswagens, which then means you're born into it. And so the way we always start the podcast is, What's your VW story, and how did you get into Volkswagen?
Yeah, that's correct. So I was really born into it. So like as a baby, I was already driving a Volkswagen. And yeah, my father started in 1970. I was born in the late 70s, and so I can remember my first driving experience was definitely a Volkswagen, and I kept it. Yeah, I still love it. And meanwhile, I have a 55 Oval and enjoy riding it.
Nice. And your dad, I mean, your dad was into Volkswagens quite a bit. What is the history that starts with your father? Now he's got a Volkswagen shop and some things like this. So how does your family, because your family's into Volkswagens before you're even born, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it started like in the 70s. For him, he had different cars before, but his very own first bought car was a split Beetle, and it probably was quite slow at these times, like with this low amount of horses. And then he started to I don't know, modify the engine, and then he switched to a 356 engine and put a Ray J turbocharger on that. And then I think it was 77, he put the first Type 4 into that car and started racing it also on the quarter mile. And then this whole business gained speed and started to grow. Yeah.
And so when you're growing up as a kid and your father's got a Type 4 powered split window, it's not a real common thing there in Germany, right?
That's correct. The split is not a common thing. So Beetles which were tuned at these days, this was common. So the Beetle is not the quickest car on earth, everybody knows. So there were many people modifying the engines and so on. But the Type 4 and the split together as a combination was quite rare, and it is still quite rare. And yeah, it was always fun to drive in it and see the reaction of the people. So
and
when you
well, there's a pretty popular video of your dad, someone videotaping your dad on the freeway. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I recently uploaded it again. So it's like 19 years ago since I made that clip. And the car at this time was equipped with a 2.6 liter engine. And we were passing the Autobahn. And this video tells a lot the story from my childhood. So we spent a lot of time on the Autobahn, and my father was trying his new inventions, and I was on the passenger seat and just enjoying that, and then of course learning stuff and having the wish also to do something similar in this case.
And so as a kid growing up, does your dad actually have a business doing Volkswagen stuff growing up, or is it a hobby for him?
No, it's really his business. And he started in 1980 officially, I guess it was 1980 or 1981. And he started to sell parts and whole engines. And people approached him after doing the quarter mile and said, okay, can we also have this kind of engine? Can you do something for us like this? And this is how it started, and then it evolved. And my father has a lot of own developed parts, like castings or his own fan shroud, and some modifications to make the engine more durable. Then his own exhaust, which looks quite stock. So you cannot tell from far away that the car is modified. Looks it's quite sleeper style then.
Yeah, it's definitely it's really a cool looking Beetle, and it's I've been a big fan of the quote unquote German look for quite a while, and it's interesting because here in the U.S. everybody is really excited about the Type 1 motors, and it seems I've always when I was first building my first bus, I was talking to a guy at a car show, and he says, well, why don't you do a Type 4? He says you can build a Type 4 2.2 liter with 90% factory parts instead of, you're using a 1600 and you're using 80% aftermarket parts, and they're not the same quality as the factory German parts. And so we're talking, and, there's obviously the philosophy of there's no replacement for displacement is a saying here in the States, right? When they're talking about big block cars. And, since 2001, I had my first 2270 Type 4 in my bus. And I've been amazed at how there's a lot of people in Germany that like the Type 4 motor. Why do you think that's such a difference between the US and Germany?
I think it's in the end the Autobahn. So you can have a lot of horsepower with the Type 1 engine, and you can push the car and be really quick. But if you have long distance travels and Autobahn at higher speeds, the Type 1 engine will not last that long. So this is why a lot of guys have Type 4 engines. And then from also circuit racing, there are some guys racing the Type 4, and the benefit is the reliability then on this side.
Yeah, the bottom end is really durable on the Type 4, and I want to get into the motor a little bit, but we're missing one part. So when you're growing up, your dad has this business doing Volkswagens. What's your first Volkswagen that you get?
Actually, I had a 1600i, so it was built in 1993 with injection, and this was also a very cool car. I enjoyed it and drove it a lot. This was my first Beetle, a Mexican Beetle.
So when you would buy the Mexican Beetles, now the Mexican Beetles are different there in Germany. They're sold there with like you can buy them with a 1600 or a 1200, a couple different configurations.
So in 1993, the car was it's a quite special car. So the first owner of the car was Porsche in Weissach. They ran some R&D tests with the car because it was when the retro wave was so popular, and VW tried to re-import these Mexican Beetles and distribute them in Germany again. And so the story is that they asked Porsche to examine the cars if they are still meeting customer expectations and stuff like that. And there was some test cars that did also crash and stuff like that. And I had one of these cars. This was at a time when the Mexican Beetle was not available by the usual dealership then in Germany. So it was quite special. And the 1600 was with the injection, and the standard Mexican Beetle is of course more 1200 or something like that.
And so this car was owned by Porsche. It
was the first owner, was it? Yeah, it was quite funny story about that. Yeah.
Now, how do you end up with this car? Someone else bought it and then you bought it, or you knew someone at Porsche?
Yeah, something like that. So the cars were for sale. I think at that time officially from VW. They sold the test cars, and I had the luck to have one of these cars then. So the first owner was Porsche, and then it was me, yeah.
And then what kind of modifications do you do to this car?
Actually, no modification except the 5.5-inch rims from Lemmert's. So this original style Lemmert's wheels with a 195 15-inch. But that's it. That was the modification. So
and now
it was.
So you have that Volkswagen. Do you have other Volkswagens, Beetles, and things like that later on, or you kind of grow up, you go to college and do this stuff?
That's correct. I was at university at this time then, and then I sold the car and had a VW Rabbit then. And afterwards, I had the luck to acquire this 55 Oval. And it was formerly owned by my parents, and they gave it to me, and so this was I was and I'm still quite well off and thankful for this car.
Now you went to college to specialize in metallurgy, is what your degree is in?
Yeah, that's correct. I have a degree in metallurgy and foundry technology. And afterwards, I made my PhD in foundry technology. And I had the chance to really learn a lot about this wide field of foundry technology and doing castings with my own hand, like magnesium, aluminium, and it was a really cool time. So I really enjoyed that.
So now I have a question. Since you have a degree in metallurgy, there's an evolution where Volkswagen goes from the magnesium aluminum cases to a full alloy case, which obviously is substantially heavier. And what was the reason? What was it cheaper to make magnesium alloy mix when they first started doing it, and then they switched to aluminum for durability, or what's the reasoning with that?
So I think originally they used it because of availability in these dark World War II times then, and then. Yeah, magnesium is well castable. It's quite light, but it has also some disadvantages. So it is less stiff. So in technical terms, it has a lower Young's modulus than the aluminum cases, and the creep rate is higher for magnesium. So if you apply a force to the metal for a long time, the metal starts to creep away, and the creep for magnesium is a lot higher than for aluminum. And so aluminum is more durable then.
So would that be the reason why the center bore goes out of round or starts to wobble because of the constant force?
That's correct, yes.
And then with the aluminum, because it's more stable and more probably thermally stable at different temperatures, that it stays. Because, talking to some people when I was talking to Jake Raby when he built my first engine, he had said that, he rarely has to line bore Type 4 cases because the bottom end of the case is so heavy duty.
Yeah, they are better and more stable. And also the bulkhead is thicker than the Type 1, which is also a benefit. But there are also Type 4 cases made from magnesium. They're made from aluminum silicon alloy. It's AS41. And the code behind it has 4% aluminum besides the magnesium and 1% silicon. So
that's what AS41 means then. So it's aluminum.
That's correct.
See, and that's the value of the podcast. So people can learn things when you see AS41 in a case, it means aluminum silicone, and it's 4 to 1% or 4%.
No, it's 4% aluminum. It's 4% aluminum and 1% silicon. And the AS21 is 2% aluminum and 1% silicon.
Interesting. And so I've often found that interesting because as our challenge, the number one challenge with all air-cooled engines, right, is heat and heat dissipation, and thermal expansion. It goes all over the place, right? You've got steel studs, you've got cast aluminum heads, you've got iron barrels. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different metals that are together on an engine. I've often thought to myself, like when I look at intake manifolds for carburetors, I think to myself, well, how come they're not having like 3D printed ones? Like you look at the LS motor for the Chevrolet, the whole intake manifold is plastic.
Yes.
And so, but I have two thoughts of this, and maybe you can, since you've got a degree in metallurgy, you can maybe work it out for me. So my thought was the engine would run cooler, but then my thought also is, do the intake manifolds actually help dissipate heat from the head because it's an extension off the cylinder head? So would they actually run hotter with plastic intake manifolds? Would the head keep more heat soak?
That's a good question. So I think most of the heat from the head is dissipated by the cooling fins, and the temperature going to the manifold in the carbs, that's not the major amount of heat going there. So the plastic manifolds also could have an advantage because it keeps the intake air cooler. And so you could generate more power from that because you have a higher air density. So that might be a benefit, actually, to have plastic manifolds. But I don't know about durability. I have my doubts. So I also thought about it to make them in plastic. But yeah, the air-cooled engines, they get quite hot all around in the engine bay. And so I don't know how stable this will be over time.
Now, my next question, because this is all metallurgy, air cooled, all this stuff, right? What about synthetic oils in an air cooled engine? Because the oil is also used to cool the head, but my understanding with synthetic oil is it's designed to not break down, and what causes that breakdown on the oil typically comes from the dissipation of the heat into the transfer of heat from the metal to the oil, So is it beneficial to do synthetic oil in an old air cooled engine, or does it actually will it make it run hotter?
Oh, I must admit, I'm not an oil specialist, so I would leave this question to the specialist. It would be better. But you can definitely put synthetic oils into your air-cooled engine. So at least partly, partly synthetic. So the engine will run nicely, and you will also be able to reduce friction then. But I'm not an oil specialist. So maybe there will be somebody else on a later podcast who can answer this question in a good way.
Okay, so now talking about the cylinder heads, now you've got some pretty wild designs on a cylinder head, which increases a substantial amount of fin coverage. Now, one of my good buddies, Adam Wick, he's built racing engines for a long time, since the 80s, on to doing off-road engines for 1600 class cars, then big Type 4 motors. And he said, the biggest drawback with the Type 4 cylinder head is it is the head surface mounting area. It's too thin, and the exhaust port, the hard angle at the exhaust port. Now, with him giving me those, with that information, and of course he's talking about extreme race applications of taking a car, at maximum RPM through the desert at, for 1,000 miles. That's probably a pretty demanding stress load for a cylinder head. Now, with those setbacks, are there any other setbacks that you see in the standard casting of the Type 4 head?
So the exhaust is quite angled. That's correct. That's not a nice design there. But there are guys pushing more than 300 horsepower with this kind of angled exhaust. So, yeah, I think the exhaust port is often overrated then in these terms. But the whole head could be more stable. So the lower side of the head is not really stiff. So and you see it when the engines get leaky. It's usually from the lower side, not only from thermal aspects, but also from the stiffness, which is not really high there. And some guys go and weld tubes in on the lower side where the bolt bosses are to make it more stiff. Which is in fact good to increase stiffness, but on the other hand, you reduce the passages for the cooling air, of course. And so, and there's the next evolution, like drilling holes in, which is a little bit better from cooling perspective, but you still block your cooling passages. So it's then a decision how you want to do it. So I'm not a fan of this welded in tubes there. And on my head, I have it a little different. I made it very, very stable there, but I also created room for the air to move around this stiffening intersection there.
Now, with the cylinder head at the bottom, is it less stiff on the bottom side because of the lack of cooling fins on the bottom side and more of the valve cover housing having such a big dense piece of metal there, or is it on the cooling fin side where it starts to warp because it's too thin?
So like, how shall I describe it best without pictures? So you have the whole valve rocker box there, and then you have the long studs going from this area to the case. And then you have this part of the head which is attached to this to the cylinder.
Right.
And if you imagine a U shape, it's more like a U shape down there. And if you clamp that, you compress the open side of the U, and this is the case there. So of course it has some fins, but it's not super stiff, and that's not it's not beneficial for long term durability there on that cooling. On the sealing flange.
So we're talking about the backside of the tall fins for the cylinder head where the exhaust ports come out. That's where it gets a little bit weak over there.
That's correct. Yes.
And that's probably because due to, everything that's going on down there between the push rods and all that stuff, there's not a lot of room to put some fins there or some meat essentially to make the head a little more stable. So with your head design, now obviously having a background working at a foundry with aluminum and all this stuff, you've had the opportunity to really see real world effects of metallurgy, changes in alloy compositions and things like that. Because obviously as Volkswagen switched from manufacturing parts in Germany to now a lot of cylinder heads are made in China, there's a lot of variation to the quality of aluminum. Have you experienced any of that where you've seen some of these aftermarket heads and you being in the foundry industry can look at it and say, oh, that's a terrible casting or the metal quality is poor or any of that?
Of course, I've seen a lot of poor castings with terrible quality, but the current standard from OEMs all over the world is very good. So all these OEMs cylinder heads, the current are very, very good quality. But I also have seen aftermarket parts, and they just pour in the metal into that open mold, and then you trap a lot of air, you have bubbles, and the durability of a cylinder head or of each casting is limited, of course, by voids. So there's no metal which can take the load. Or you can have oxides. So the aluminum, when it's liquid, it oxides very quickly, like in hundreds of seconds. And then you have separations inside your metal. So it's not like metal to metal, but you have some oxide in between. And this cannot take the load, and it cracks there. And on the cylinder head, it's quite special. You also have the normal load from the operation, but you also have thermomechanical fatigue, which means the head gets hot and cold in cycles, and this stresses also the material.
And how do you compensate for that? Because as I'm looking at the casting on the head, I think, okay, I can't remember the guy. I don't think it's JPM. It's Rommel, and I think they make a billet aluminum Type 4 cylinder head. Is that right?
Maybe you mean Remle? Yeah, there are many guys who are doing billet heads. So they also have some advantages, but they also have a lot of disadvantages. So that's why I decided. So I like foundry, of course, but that's why I decided to do a cast head. Because you can also do a lot about the alloy, you can do a lot about the local properties. So if you freeze your metal very quickly in the mold, you have improved strength from your material, and this is the factor I use. So I have a sand casting. Sand casting usually does not offer super high mechanical properties, but I put chills inside of my mold. So this means I put some pieces of metal inside of the mold, and there the metal freezes, so the liquid aluminum freezes really quickly, and then you have improved properties. And all the areas which I know which are highly loaded thermally or just by load, I put some chills in, so to improve the metal quality there.
Now, so talking about cast versus billet, right? Because if you have a really dense piece of steel or aluminum or alloy, let's say, versus billet would be much more dense than cast, but
that's correct.
The density would have heat soak longer, wouldn't it?
So that's true. So you have the heat capacity of the material, and you have the mass of the material, and so this dictates the heat soak. But the difference between a billet and a cast concerning heat capacity and mass is not that super high, but you have really a bigger difference in heat transfer or heat conductivity, sorry, in heat conductivity, and the billet materials have a higher heat conductivity. So, like I would say, like from gut feeling, like 10% more at least. And this has a big benefit to get the heat out of the head. But then you have also the length from there where the heat is created, like in the combustion chamber, and the fins. And if this the distance is too long, then all that very good heat conductivity is in the end not enough. So it has a benefit, but the best way is really to take the heat out there where it's generated. So that's something the billet heads lack of at the moment. So 3D printed would be also very cool from metal. So you need to really put the cooling air there where the heat is generated, and this will help. So I also have seen billet heads which were leaking, and or drop valve seats or something like that.
So do you, now with your head design, you did quite a few different things. And a picture of your cylinder head in that Hot VWs, that April 2025 Hot VWs, a picture of the cylinder head casting. Now, you added quite a few more fin, right? And it looks like it's got quite a bit more fin, and there's metal still in the place where the other metal was, but you took, instead of having one blade of the fin, you took and rotated the fin design to be perpendicular to the way that it was. And I'm assuming that was to get more fins to dissipate heat faster at the top of the cylinder head. Around the
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So on the one hand, I've interrupted fins, which increases the heat transfer to the air, because you build up a boundary layer when you have just one fin blade, and then the air gets lazy the longer it flows around the fin, so to the backside of the fin, and you reduce the heat transfer, because the turbulence is really beneficial for heat transfer. But the reason why I rotated the fins is with the fan shroud I use and the old style, you have the air moving like a spiral in the fan shroud, so it's not going straight but in a spiral, and so it's
like the velocity of the air, or the air is going to naturally flow deeper into those veins.
It's flowing deeper, and the direction of the air is like going by that van. It's going to the left and to the right. It's not going straight, and to the spiral. It's flowing along the rotated fins then, and the other fins are in that standard way, and there the air flows down. I also tested that with some on a bench, test bench with some wool there to see where the air is moving. And it went like I figured that out. And this is going back to an idea from my father from the 80s. And he, at that time, he had a small casting which was welded onto the original head. And this helped quite a lot. But this idea did not get lost, but somehow the mold in the foundry, or the model, got lost, and this idea was buried for some time. But I took it again, like 30 years later, and grabbed it to bring it to life again. And then also my father, in the meantime, he had some welded heads where he had this fin orientation like I have it. And this was intensely tested. And one cylinder head he used for 200,000 kilometers with a lot of modifications till he finally put it for retirement. But this proved that this is quite beneficial. And where the sparks sit, where the spark plugs sit, you need to remove the air in the heat as good as you can then to have a good and leak-tight sealing there.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at photographs from your father's fan shroud and on the split window, and he has like what look like heater ducts, but it's actually air that's rerouted pushing up from the bottom of the cylinder head. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And he has some kind of patent on that idea. It's called in German Gebrauchsmusterschutz. many people, I don't know, don't like this idea, but it has proven that this gives a lot durability to the engines. A lot of people have that, and they rate their car for daily use or also on the track without any issues, without having drops under the car. So this is a very cool, in fact, invention. And I took it also, of course, and applied it to my head and had some modifications to make it even more effective.
Now, you have a test engine in your 55?
So in my 55, I have a standard engine. It's a 1.8 liter.
Type 4?
Sorry, Type 4. Yes, of course. So that's family rule, yeah.
Right.
It's a Type 4 and runs very well. And I like the 1.8 because it's super stable. It has the 55 millimeter rod, in the crankshaft, the rod bearing, so it makes it super stable, and you can push it to high revs without having any issues with the case or whatever. So, and also the ratio between the cooling fins and the combustion chamber is very beneficial. The bigger you go, the more heat you have inside your combustion chamber, but the ribs, so the fins outside, stay the same.
Right. So on a 1.8 liter, now for some of those that don't know, right, can we break down between a 1.7, which is, so we're going to talk factory engines, right? 1.7, 1.8, and 2.0. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between the three motors when it comes to cylinder heads? Because I've often heard, the holy grail of Type 4 heads is the 914 2-liter heads. But I've also heard from people that the 1.8 head is somehow better. For what reason? Now, for some of those guys that are thinking about building a Type 4 and they're going to do it themselves, what would you suggest as far as let's break down the differences, if there's differences between the pros and cons for each motor to start with as a core motor to build?
So the 1.7 has 90 millimeters in bore, the 1.8, 93. So I have 94 with Type 1 pistons. And then a 2-liter is the 94 millimeters. And then, you have the differences of the 914 head. This has a different angle from the spark plug, which is said to be more beneficial. Mm-hmm. And it has also more cooling fins on top of the where the spark sits on the top of the head, which is also good. I think it has 3, and which one also has 3? I don't know it by heart right now, but the older engines, I think there's maybe even only 1, and having more fins on top is definitely recognizable in terms of durability. Mm-hmm. So this is also kind of I don't want to call it game changer, but it's better for durability, definitely. And from the combustion chamber, I don't know, there are different opinions there. I have not yet seen some really one-to-one comparison, 914 heads to the other. Of course, the channels are a little bit bigger, but when you go and modify an original head, this doesn't play such a role how big your intakes are when you modify them anyway. So I used the 1.8 liter spark plug angle because it fits best to the vent shroud, and you can have an easier spark plug exchange. So it's always it needs to be practical then. It doesn't matter that you have you caught the last 1 or 2 horses for me, but it needs to be, I don't know, practical and used in daily business better. Yeah.
And with the 1.8 liter that you're running in your oval, and what? So it's a stock crank and stock cylinders on that, and
correct.
What is the build of that motor? Just a camshaft and some rockers, springs? What modifications do you have other than it being stock?
It's actually really only the cam and a bit modified intake and smoothened exhaust, but it's not a major modification there. And then it has the intake manifolds my father makes, and then just some standard Weber carbs, and then the exhaust from my father. And this is also, and the airbox, of course, and the whole system is working quite well with each other. So you have a good drivability, you have good low-end torque, and you also have nice performance. So from the quarter mile, it pushes 14.8 seconds. And I think this is not that bad for 1.8 liter.
and how does that car drive on the freeway? What speed can you comfortably go for a long period of time on 0.8 liter?
Like easily go 180, and you can even take your hands off the wheel. So it's a swing axle. It's of course lowered. Without lowering, this is hell. You cannot drive that car that quick without lowering it. And I had it. The car was in the beginning was a little too high, and I made a video to have a look why the car felt so, I don't know, felt so like wobbly or whatever, how you call it.
Right, like it was washing out, like the back end was feeling like it was washing out.
Yes, right. And by the video, I found out that the car is going into positive camber when you went over street bumps. So, and then I lowered it, and this was super nice and perfect. So, and I coated the fulcrum plates with Teflon so that it can stand the lowering. So that's also a problem. A lot of people probably know when you lower the swing axle, you have a more relative movement, and then your fulcrum plates get messed up with time. It can get even really quick, in fact.
Now, how do you coat them with Teflon? Is that something someone can do at home, or it's because you have access to a foundry and things like that?
No, that's why I send it to a company, and they do some race stuff and like that. And I don't know if somebody else coated that before than me. I haven't heard that before. And I'm super, super satisfied with that. So I think, how many kilometers do they have? Like 40, 50,000, and it's still nice. So it's still moving without this rattling noise, and still feeling nice. But unfortunately, I killed my gearbox, and I still need to repair that. So the bearing in the end, the fixed bearing, is not fixed anymore. So there was a lot of quarter mile, maybe not that much, but little too much abuse then on that.
And the transaxle you have in there, what is the gearing on?
At the moment, it's the short one. It's the 4.3. What's it? 125.
437.
Yeah, right, correct. And it's 0.89 last
Fourth
year.
gear.
It's original, yeah. And now I built my gearbox with a Weddell 0.93 and the long from the long 3.87.
Yeah,
right, from the Super Beetle, yeah.
The 388 ring and pinion.
Correct. And then I also modified the fixed bearing, the plate, which is usually made of magnesium. I got it from the VW bus from Brazil. Mm-hmm. And I modified it by welding to take the bearing from the later Beetles then.
So you're talking about the bearing on the ring gear?
What's it called? I need to think a little moment.
Or the pinion.
To get it's in the end of the gearbox where. Oh, sorry. I need to think about it. Maybe you can ask me later then.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So the cam. So I got a couple questions. You guys run an air box on your car. Is there a benefit? Because here in the States, everyone just runs the air filters, right? What is the benefit to the air box, or is that required for sound in Germany? Like what is the benefit for the air box if there's one?
Yeah, on the one hand, it's required because it will be too loud then. But some also do it with the air filter. So I don't know if everything else is silent and the cam is not too wild, this might work. But the intake noise gets really wild. So if you know it was, if you drive it with open 48 IDAS or IDF or whatever, this is like really hammering. And this is, I must admit, it's kind of cool, but not for a long time. So it will mess your brain. So I take the car and I get it, and I drove 500 kilometers to one side and then go back the next day. And this is no problem. So, and if you do with open carbs, I don't know, go home and cry then.
Right.
So at least me, maybe I'm too weak for that.
Well, it's just the drone of the engine makes it less comfortable, and you guys kind of do that for more drivability.
It's a difference if you go correct. It's a difference if you go like 55 miles per hour or something like that, or if you go 180 kilometers per hour. And this is a really big difference. So you cannot stand that for a long time. So I know how this sounds and feels, but this is, I don't know, this is not that convenient.
So this car's ran 1480s in the quarter with a basically stock 1.8 liter with mild port work done and a small camshaft.
Yes. The camshaft is not that small.
What type?
But
what
it's
is the
not
cam?
that wide on the other end. It's 316 degrees.
It's 316 degree camshaft?
Yeah, that's correct. So
What's
it's
the
something
lift?
So the lift is around, so the valve lift or the lift of the cam is like, what's it, 9 point a little bit. It doesn't open that wide because it's also, if you have small intake channels, it doesn't help anymore to open the cam or the valves more and more, because the flow is the bottleneck is not the valve opening, but the valve seat then.
Yeah.
And it has stock valves. I think it's 39 intake, as I remember.
And so your lift, what was your lift on that?
The valve lift then, so the ratio is 1.3 something, 1.31 or so. So yeah, like 13 millimeters somehow, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what cam profile if it's like a 110 style cam, a little bit more aggressive than stock, just for a little more lift duration. And then exhaust system that you have on that motor is, did your father manufactures parts for Volkswagens for Type 4s?
Yeah, he's doing like everything. So in fact, you can buy an engine which carries his name. So my family name, and a lot of guys in Germany will know it, or Europe. So it's called Klaus motor, Klaus engine. Mm-hmm. And so he's producing all the fan shroud, the exhaust, all that airbox stuff, and also internals of the engine.
So you can get just about anything from your father's shop. And what is the website does he have a website for it?
Yes, it's klaus-motoren.com.
Klaus, what is the next
and
word?
You can find it on the web. So it's the minus sign.
Uh-huh.
And then it's spelled MOOTREN.com. Hope that is right. Just give me a second, maybe.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. So that's interesting. So you can order. So your father has made and manufactured lots of Type 4 stuff. Now, your dad's still around?
Yes, he's still around, but meanwhile he's like approaching 70, 77. So he's doing less, of course. So he's doing it for fun. He still loves it. But he's not like that active like in the past, of course. So right. Imagine you are 77, yeah.
And so, I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and then obviously you have a career in the foundry industry and things like that. So there's no plan that you have to work to take over his business because you're busy with your current job you have working in the foundry.
Yeah, that's correct. So I love it. So I want to definitely keep the family heritage, and that's why we somehow. So I wrote you, and so George Otto from DFL said me, "Oh, here, have a look what Bill is doing," because I told him I want to write a book about that stuff.
Yeah.
And also a little bit about the history of the people, and it would be sad that it would just gets lost. So I try to collect the stories and also the technical stuff and put it into a book. So that's a big project like the cylinder head, which is like I started that 7 years ago. But that's I want to really keep that heritage to also give it to the younger guys, to give them a chance to dig into that hobby and do not need to test out by themselves, but can rely on something which has been approved or tested.
And then, with this being kind of a family heritage for this, for your dad and his engine building and all that stuff, did your father taught you how to build engines and all this?
Yeah, I always watched how he did it. So as I said, I remember always like from childhood on to drive in a Beetle, and I was always in the shop since I can remember. So I was also playing with Lego bricks in the shop, and then later on, having a look how he's doing that, and then some disassembling engines, and like sorting out parts, cleaning the shop. So typical grease monkey stuff.
Yeah. And now he's got the 2.6 liter, and then you've got the 1.8 liter in your car. Now that with the cylinder heads that you're making currently, or that you're in the process of making, you plan just to make a few sets for yourself, just for fun, or if it's something that you look at and you feel like really confident and you test it, you may make a batch for production, or what?
So I'm super confident that this will super durable and very good. And I started with the project like that, but then I found out that I want to keep it as a hobby and not to sell these parts, because I'm busy with work, of course, and I don't want to have a second work after work. So I want to keep the fun with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I have two sets in the end. Of these parts, and I really had luck with all the people I met during this. It was really kind of journey I went on, who helped me, because it's like I started to learn CAD in the beginning, and so it started with a scanned head. I scanned an original cylinder head,
right,
and digitized it, and then I measured all these, cylinder bore spacing, valve spacing, and whatever. There are a lot of dimensions, and I had, of course, a used head which has also tolerances. So I need to figure out during that way how to build that up from scratch, and then I totally blueprinted that. And then at some point, it was also due to COVID, I somehow lost track, and I thought, okay, I will not finish that. I will dump it. It's too much work. But then I thought, okay, I cannot dump it. I invested now, meanwhile, 2 plastic prototypes and stuff like that. And I approached a friend of mine, and I said, can you do the core parting for me? I don't know. I lost it somehow, but I do not want to dump the project. And then he said, okay, his name is Ralf, by the way. Thank you very much, Ralf. And then he said, I might have something for you. So he's also owner of a company who developed and distributed simulation software for casting. And he said, okay, we have a project here. Maybe we can help you. So, and I also have some recommendation for casting. And then I met Felix, the owner of a foundry in Bavaria, and his team, like Joshua and Moritz, and they helped me to realize that project. So with all the work which needed to go in there, and they learned a lot. Due to this project, I also learned a lot from them, and I'm really thankful that we went this whole journey. So we needed some castings till we had this good one, or these good ones. We used 3D printed sand molds, and in the beginning we had the issue that the descending wasn't proper, and it took some castings till we figured out how to remove the sand properly out of these little spaces of the 2.5 millimeter thick fins.
Yeah. It's, I find it really, it's unbelievably interesting that you're in the business of doing foundries. You're into air-cooled Volkswagens. It's kind of a passion. You started from your father, from his work, and luck would have it that you would still have this passion all these years later to continue trying to do something like this, which I think is exciting. And even in this world we all live in as Volkswagen enthusiasts, where we're dealing with 60, 70-year-old technology and trying to make it better because we are so committed to the platform or the tradition of the air-cooled flat four with these cylinder heads. So these heads, let's say, if someone wanted to manufacture these heads, you've already manufactured 2 sets for yourself. If someone wanted to make these heads, they could make these heads.
There's always a possibility to do something and achieve something, but it won't be easy. So as I'm a specialist and I took some time, I meanwhile know how long it takes to do them. But definitely it would be possible. So we have the recipe of all these core partings, and we just need to reprint the molds and cast them. But in the end, if somebody would like to do it, it needs to be a business case for somebody. And so we are approaching a high, 5-digit? A high 3-digit number. No, what's it? 4, sorry.
Well, 6.
No, just let me count.
Yeah, 6 digits, probably closer to high 5 digits or low 6 digits, probably to do something like this.
It's like you need several thousands of euros.
Yeah,
definitely. So all the development which went in, of course, it's worth a lot of money. So if I would just give me a few bucks per hour, I spent at least 3,000 hours upwards on the project. So there was traveling and testing and the resin prototypes, and then a computer I fried with the simulation. So it broke down due to the intense simulation. Yeah.
Now let me ask this question: what is the net difference that you've noticed with these heads that you've built?
Sorry, can you explain for me what you mean with net difference?
So the net difference with respect to cooling temperatures, performance, or any of those things. I mean, mostly it's been the cooling and the head sealing, or have you done much R&D with the sets of heads that you've made?
Yes, I did from the cooling perspective, definitely. So this is also when you count the surface, you will recognize that I don't know, it's a vast number of fin increasement, and also the air flow direction. This is increased. So at the moment, I don't know the performance numbers, so I need to machine them. This is the next big step, and one which I don't want to say fear, but I foresets, and I hope we will not destroy them in the machining process. So there's a lot which can go wrong then. Everybody knows who does castings knows that this is sometimes a big risk for these small batches. But then, I don't know, the testing needs to be done for performance numbers. So there are benefits, like I can reduce the rotations of the cooling fan, which will generate power without investing something. And then else, I can play around with ignition timing. So, and it has a higher compression ratio. So this will all increase efficiency then. But in the end, I need to find out. So this is still an open topic, yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people that discuss coatings for engine parts and things like that. What's your feeling on that?
It's really great. So coatings are really superior. If you have a good coating, you can reduce the heat dissipation from your combustion chamber into the head, and you can operate at higher temperatures, which gives you more performance then. So this is good. But I don't know how good most coatings are, but I know also from research point of perspective that there are some like, or let's take the port liner from the Porsche.
Yeah.
From the 911s. So this is a ceramic coating. It's not a ceramic coating, it's a ceramic port liner. It's cast in. and this reduces a lot the heat which the head needs to take, and this is super beneficial. So you can also, if you have your turbo, your exhaust gases are hotter, which can be beneficial for the response of the turbo. So I'm really a big fan of coating there.
So what type of coatings that you see people putting cylinder heads, like what is and are these coatings available for like the do-it-yourselfer at home? Is it something that they can purchase and put on with these coatings?
I don't know. There are some coatings on the market, and I also you can also do it yourself. I forgot the name right now. It's some kind of golden brown stuff. But then I took a look at the safety sheet, and I decided for myself that I don't want to touch this stuff because it's really poisonous, and it's really toxic. Yeah. But then you have enamel coatings, but it's hard, like to find out some companies who can apply that in a proper way in a small batch size. Then you can also have spray coating with aluminum oxide, which is also good. But then you need to take care that it sticks to the head, because when it gets loose, the coatings, ceramic coatings, are super hard. And if they get into your combustion chamber, your cylinder and piston rings will really die an early death then.
You know, that's one of the things when I interviewed Clyde Berg, he talked about in the 70s they were fooling around with steel head inserts where the valves go in, where they would actually have a steel insert at the top of the combustion chamber. Now, obviously that doesn't make sense to do that. I mean, they were doing that back in those days for really high compression, but I don't, there's obviously, anytime you're going to put a cylinder head, one piece is probably the most durable thing. Do you see any value in anything like that?
Like putting inserts in the combustion chamber, or what do you mean?
Yeah, because that's what they used to run. Gene Berg and those guys, and back in the day, they would put a cast iron top plate in the cylinder head, so the valves would actually be machined into that, and that would be pressed into the cylinder head.
Okay. I think I know what you mean.
And I think they did it for compression.
The problem is the different heat expansion, so it will get loose. So this is I don't see a practical benefit which lasts long. And also, if you apply something with a lower heat conductivity in the cylinder head, I don't know. There's still some aluminum remaining, so then this will need to take more heat then. And I don't think that this is something durable for the operation on the street. Then can help, of course, for drag racing. Now, but the coating would be really good to keep the heat out. And modern engines are also running with steel pistons, which allows also for different combustion concepts. Then
new motors are running steel pistons, you said?
Yes, some diesel engines running steel pistons. Yeah.
And that's for durability?
That's so you can run higher temperatures. So this is for efficiency. And of course, the steel pistons is probably more durable. But in the end, the engine case needs to be designed for that. And also the piston, that it does not crack, because the piston is a lot stiffer then. But yes, there are steel pistons in diesel engines, yeah.
More brittle. And then I think it would make sense with the steel cylinders and the steel piston, they would have the same thermal expansion rate, right? So you maintain compression. Because that's what would happen, right? When you have a steel cylinder and you have an aluminum piston, you get a little bit of, sometimes you get with the dissimilar metals, thermal expansion, where you might lose a little bit of compression, or I don't know.
So with the aluminum piston, it expands, of course, more. That's why you need the clearance. If you have both materials the same, you can have closer clearance there. Yeah. Closer tolerance, and also the clearance between piston and cylinder does not need that big.
That's interesting. And now the exhaust system that I see in the pictures that you have, which is like a shorty header that takes the factory Type 4 style flange for the muffler. Is that that's custom made by your dad? That's one of his exhaust setups?
So you saw it on my okay. Yeah, that's from my dad. That's custom made by him. Yeah, he developed that over the years. So I don't know. He started with that also in the 80s and had stainless steel exhaust system. And so in the beginning, when this Type 4 thing started, you had this like Leistritz or original factory exhaust, and you shorted them to put them into the Beetle, and they always cracked, so it was always rattling and stuff like that. And then he made it from stainless steel, and meanwhile, like for more than 20 years, he has a system where the internals of the exhaust can move freely in the in the what's it
The muffler?
in the muffler, right? Thanks.
Well, so there's also some thoughts on that, right? I know that I had a motor and I'd put like a vintage speed canister style exhaust where it just has everything goes into a canister. I don't know how the internals are set up on it. And then I had an 1800 cc low compression. I had this exhaust because it looked really nice. And then I changed it to a typical 4-into-1 with a single glass pack. And it made the engine much more responsive. And some people, there's a philosophy of the merged collector has an ability to help pull out the exhaust gases, making the motor rev a little faster versus the excessive back pressure from being in a canister. What's your thoughts on that?
So the 4-into-1 and the merging is of course good, but you can also have in the canister some kind of fancy exhaust system. And I have an exhaust. I have a muffler which features a 4-into-1 in this kind of canister stud. So it's kind of hideaway 4-into-1, and for super high power, it's recommended to have this kind of merged mufflers and 4-into-1 systems. That always works very well. So if you see all these circuit races and high performance cars, you always have this 4-into-1. But you can also achieve a good horsepower, and also the response of the throttle. It's also often related to the diameter and to equal length of the internals of the exhaust. If you do not well align it and you have different length of your exhaust system, you can also have a bad response if you put the gas and you see the car is, responding well because the wrong cylinder is hit to start that whole process of revving up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, it's definitely, there's so many different schools of thought on engine building and really the purpose, right? Because so much here in the States is short distance quarter-mile running, to where in Germany they have the Autobahn and you're going to get on the freeway, you're going to go for, a few hours at a high RPM for a long period of time, which makes sense to go with the Type 4. But I'm really excited to see what's going to come from machining the heads and getting them on a test engine and get some data from you with the feedback from that, because it would be interesting to see the difference in just cylinder head temperatures. Now, do you have cylinder head temperature gauges now in your car to know how they run?
No, I don't have it. So it too many gauges irritate life.
Right, makes you crazy.
Yeah, right. So and I know this works and doesn't fail, but for my new heads, I actually have on each cylinder, I will have a own thermocouple to just find out how effective the whole cooling is and how to see how many difference between there is. And that's, I don't know, because I'm just curious how well this works, and maybe I can optimize something. But in the end it will be good. So that's for sure. But I'm a kind of researcher, definitely.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see that, and excited to, it was nice to learn a bit about your dad and his history with KlausMotoren.com. So it's MOTOREN.com. So I'll leave a link in the description below so people can check out your your father's website, which is pretty cool. Now the fan shrouds he still makes and has those for sale.
Yeah, he only sells it with his own engines because he's always afraid of copying. In fact, there are a lot of copies around, but he often likes to sell only the whole engines as a concept. That's what he did. So, but he also sells some single parts. But in fact, he loves to sell more the complete engine, and have contact with the customer to see the satisfaction in the end, and like to stay in contact and see that people are really happy then in the end. So I think this drives him a lot.
Yeah, and so is your dad still building engines for people?
Yeah, less and less. So I think there will be not a lot then for the future. But I talked to him, and he told me that he delivered an engine last week, I think, and he is going to build the next one. But he's also talking about retirement. So. I don't know how many engines he wants to build.
and what does it cost for a typical engine your dad builds because he likes to build them complete? What does a complete engine run? A ballpark?
That's I don't know by heart, so maybe I can just give rough indication. But my father likes to sell complete engine, which means there's the fuel pump, there's the oil cooler, and everything you and the oil hoses to the front, so it's really super complete. I think it's around 25k euro, something like that. Yeah.
And these motors that he builds, they're built for durability and reliability. He's obviously really pleased with the Type 4s and building those motors. And so how many motors do you think your father's built his lifetime?
Oh, that's a good question. I asked him frequent times, and he says he doesn't know. Honestly, I don't know. But a lot of people in Germany have engines he built, and also in Europe some people have it. But he never sold it to far away because he likes to stay in contact with the customer. And so he knows every customer. And meanwhile, you see all the customers, some of them also retire and sell their cars. And sometimes you see that these cars are sold and the engine is still running. And the funny story was that somebody had an engine from him. I don't know, was sold a few years. He went to the US.
Yeah.
With that car in the engine, and it came back to Europe, and somebody bought it there. So
oh, really?
It was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So your dad has a reputation for building a good engine. If you see the Klaus intake manifolds, things like this, you probably don't run across those too often at the swap meet or things like that. But he's been building parts for a long time, your father?
Yeah, for a very long time. Like he started with his own parts in the early 80s. And then I probably came into foundry industry because he was doing his own castings. So not in a foundry by himself, but he made the models or invented them or somehow designed them and let them cast. And I really liked that. And so this was, maybe the driver for me to get into foundry industry, because if you have a lot of creativity, you can have a good job in the foundry industry then.
Yeah, no, that's it's a testament to the resourcefulness of Volkswagen enthusiasts, right? If no one makes it, they will make it themselves, right? The intake manifolds and all that good stuff. My other question is with camshafts. Now, do you guys prefer solid lifters or hydraulic lifters over there?
It depends on the engine concept. If you have just a standard 2-liter, the hydraulic lifters are very convenient. You do not need to control them. But solid lifters is of course better because they weigh less and allow for higher revs then. And with the cylinder head cooling all around, you do not need to often control the valve flash, because if the whole engine is thermally stable, it does not compress by or move by the heat.
Yeah, so the valves stay fairly well within adjustment. Man, well, I tell you, it's been Gerald. It's been an awesome time talking to you. I really enjoy the information. I'm excited to see what comes from the final finishing of the cylinder head prototypes and things like that. And I'm excited to get back with you, and we do a part 2 to this after you go and get the heads machined. And then you come back with some data, and we just discuss the differences of the theory put to the test. And I know that with what you do in your day-to-day job, you can look at the technology in the Type 4 cylinder head, and that was fantastic for 1973. Here we are all these years later, 50 years later, and now we can make slight modifications that make substantial differences on the back end. So I'm excited to see the results of your hard work, how they come out in the end.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. It was a pleasure also for me. Yeah. If you're in Europe, I don't know, again, I heard from your podcast that you sometimes here.
Yes.
We can go for a ride. So maybe when you're in Spa or whatever.
Listen, I would love to. I'm going to be there for the Air Mighty show. And then I'm going to be going to Air Mighty. We're going to be leaving with Russell, Ritchie, and those guys out of Scotland. So we're going to go from Scotland to the Netherlands. And so I don't know if that's just on a straight ferry, but for sure I will probably be there. Now, you're close to what part in Germany?
Close to Frankfurt, more or less, if somebody knows it. Or maybe from the US, some people know Ramstein.
Uh-huh.
With the airbase, military airbase, that's quite close. It's less than 1 hour drive from here.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to. Next time I'm in Germany, I'd like to go for they have a 1st of May show. I guess that's pretty big every year. So that's
cool. I wanted to go there this year, but I don't know what there was a lot of stuff around. I always miss these shows, unfortunately, so I'm always busy with doing stuff. But for next year, definitely I plan it. And next year, we also have this Hessisch-Oldendorf meeting with all these super cool vintage cars.
Well, I'll be at Hessisch next year for sure. So
really. Then let's meet there. So the plan is to go there with the cylinder heads, and then let's meet.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, well, I'm excited to see it. Keep me posted on any and all changes that you're doing. And how is your dad's English?
So yeah, he I think his English is quite good. So
we may have to do an interview with Klaus Engines just to get the history down, because I think it's so great that he's been so committed to this hobby for so long, as being a guy who builds engines and does the stuff. I think it's exciting, and I'd love to maybe get a podcast with your dad and talk about his history. I think that would be fun.
That's his life, yeah. Maybe we can meet all together in Hessisch-Oldendorf next year. Maybe.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. I would love it. That we'd see the cylinder head.
I will ask him to go there.
That's fantastic. Well, for sure, we'll keep in touch and keep me posted on the cylinder heads. Absolutely.
Definitely. So thanks, and I'm really enjoying your podcast. So I need to say that it's really cool. I love it.
Oh no, I appreciate you for listening. And this is really the purpose of it, right? To recognize all those things that are happening in the VW community all around, and sharing the information with all the guys. So I think that's awesome, man. And thanks for listening, and I appreciate your time today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dan.
All right.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
We'll talk to you. Thanks. Well, I'll absolutely look forward to interviewing his dad next year at Hessisch. I'm excited about that. And also just to check out what people are doing all around the world with their Volkswagen. So if you like this podcast, and I know you did, make sure you share it with all your friends out there, copy and paste whatever you're listening to, and send it to your VW buddies, because I'm sure they'll really enjoy listening to some VW goodness. So one crazy weekend, guys. We're not far away. It's 150 days or less till one crazy weekend, and I am getting super excited. Got a lot of rooms pre-sold. Make sure you guys go book your rooms today. Get your car registered. It's going to be an awesome time at One Crazy Weekend. So for more information, go to letstalkdubs.com. Click on the link that says Showtime. Matter of fact, my buddy Jeremy Longman, one of my listeners in New Zealand, reached out to me and he said, "Hey, man, is it a good thing if I come out but I don't have a Volkswagen?" And I said, come on down to One Crazy Weekend, because the event is based at the hotel. It's become kind of a cultural event, right? So the whole place is jammed with cars, and with the events that are going on, there's so many people. And of course, our Volkswagen community, when we start seeing and meeting people from around the world, man, we always invite them to go out with us. So if you're contemplating on coming to one crazy weekend, like just coming out to hang out, get your room booked and just hang for the weekend, it's totally worth it. You'll have a great time. We'll get you guys situated with people to ride with on the strip cruise. We'll get you guys situated with people on the poker run. It is a blast. So you guys are going to have a great time, even if you don't bring your Volkswagen. Obviously, the ideal thing would be to bring your Volkswagen, but there are so many people, so many friendly Volkswagen enthusiasts here. You make friends for life, you make new relationships, and you get to see what's happening on the West Coast over here. So it's definitely worth it if you guys are contemplating, I wonder if I should go out if I have a good time. I promise you'll have a good time. You guys come see me personally, and we'll get you outfitted with some people in the scene to kick it with for the weekend. So it's going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to it. So lots of other stuff coming up. We'll be getting a little in depth next week with some of the schedule happening in the next few weeks and next few months. But I did want to remind you guys about the Luft Classic. And for you guys up in the Northeast, make sure you guys go check out the Luft Classicer. That's happening in Trevorton, Rhode Island, May 18th, 2025. It's not far off. It's 9 days, 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 19 seconds away as of right now. So if you're in the Northeast and you're looking for something cool to check out on the 18th, go to lufthaus.com. That's thelufthaus.com. I'll put a link in the description below. If you guys, from the Northeast listeners, you guys want to check it out, get it registered. It's a huge indoor car show happening in Trevorton, Rhode Island. So that's May 18th, guys. So Northeast, get out there, blow up that scene. Let's see what you got. Also, shout out this week to Tim Thompson out of New Brighton, Minnesota. Appreciate you supporting the podcast. Picked up a shirt. I'll send you some stuff. He says, thank you for the podcast. It kept me motivated during the winter, man. So hopefully you get your car busted out. Who knows? Maybe we'll see it one crazy weekend. So I appreciate you guys that support the podcast. So if you want to support the podcast, go to letstalkdubs.com. Click on the link where it says merch or shop and support your boy. So hopefully I get some new shirts coming out soon. It's just been a busy dude lately with so much going on. But there's lots in the work. I'm going to be doing a roundtable coming up. Probably record them this weekend, me and some of the boys that are around, and get something put together for you guys to check out. So anyway, guys, appreciate you guys for supporting Let's Talk Dubs. More great podcasts to come next week. And if you guys have anything you need from me, Bill at letstalkdubs.com. Until next week, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen.